Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Carrie Gillum. I work with Howard here at Career Oyster, and we are super excited today to present to you some of the 2025 workplace trends and how things like AI and the gig economy are going to change the workplace in 2025 and how you can prepare yourself with proactive career management. I think everybody knows Howard, but just a little bit of background. Howard has been an executive recruiter, he's been a salesperson, and he's got some engineering degrees and has created this really unique system to help people find jobs with forward-looking resumes and a six-step process to take control of job interviews. So I know Howard will introduce himself here in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So what we're going to talk about here today is what are some of those specific workplace trends and changes we're going to see in 2025, how AI is going to impact our jobs, and this is across so many different types of jobs and responsibilities, how the gig economy, which has been around a bit, but it was going to continue to change how we work, how key industries, particularly industries like tech, are going to see changes in roles, how your career life cycle will shorten and shift. Howard's got some great insights here. And then how you can, given all of this, take a proactive approach to your career and make sure that you are set up for success to really get that job and the career that you were looking for in 2025. So with that, a couple of changes to the workplace in 2025. AI is going to continue to impact all of our jobs. Yahoo had a quote that 30% of workers could see at least 50% of their tasks being disruptive by generative AI. Historically, a lot of automation has impacted blue-collar jobs. This is the first time that we're really seeing AI, any kind of automation, impacting white-collar jobs. Some of the most impacted roles here are listed: administrative roles, developers, writers, underwriters, tax preparers, legal secretaries. So those are some of the roles that are going to be impacted the most by AI. The jobs that are going to be impacted less are going to be those hands-on jobs, any jobs that require emotional or social components, anything that's going to require a true expertise that's above that AI technology. And we're going to talk more about that. Anything that requires decision making, strategy, planning. So really what you want to do to prepare yourself is to get above the technology and make sure that your job's not going to be overtaken by AI. And kind of along that, those people who can embrace AI and use it are going to have the best chance in the second half of this decade. Really, AI is just the next technology shift, right? And we've had this every so many years over the last, 40, 50 years, that technology continues to change. And so this is just the next big thing. And there's so many great benefits to AI. So it's not something we should avoid or be afraid of. AI can enhance your productivity. It can automate repetitive tasks that you have to do. And it also can enable better decision making. So like any technology change, we need to learn how to embrace it. I can tell you personally, as a marketer, right? Marketers are a lot of different skills and disciplines, marketing. And as a marketer, I am not a graphic designer. I am an okay writer, but I can tell you that by using the AI tools that are out there, I'm doing my own graphic design. I'm writing better and faster. I'm using better data insights in my marketing research, and I'm better to write better SEO. So really, there's great opportunities for any of us. You just need to learn the AI relevant to your role or your industry and learn how to embrace it. And with that, Howard, I will hand it over to you and let you talk a little bit about the career life cycle.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Glad you're joining us. And I've given this presentation for quite a while, and it's consciously or unconsciously, we do pick opportunities based on product life cycles. And it's important to understand the product life cycle curve, where it always starts out in a development mode, then it goes into a growth mode, or an introduction and a growth mode, and as a mature mode, and then everything declines and gets replaced by other things such as AI. Now, the interesting thing is there are jobs in every one of these areas. However, the pay changes, the opportunities change, the long-term career path changes, and they shorten. And we'll talk a little bit later what that means. So let's talk about what is a product life cycle. The first product life cycle is any product. We know about cell phones. We know about farming. We know about any product out there, manufacturing, software, technology, etc. It is changing. It goes through cycles and gets replaced by a new cycle. The jobs do change and the opportunities change there, and you have to adjust to that. The second thing that we notice, let me click that. Oops, click me up. Okay, great. Here's some other changes that also go through product life cycles, technologies, and therefore, if products change, services change, the positions and their tasks also have to be adjusted. So sometimes you can gradually move up. Other times you have to jolt yourself to a new technology and maybe a new approach, a little paradigm shift perhaps in how things go. And in those cases, you need to maybe even get a little certification or a little education and training. But in the end, you have to maintain your marketability by shifting through the product lifecycle. Other things are projects. Projects also go through different stages, as everyone knows, and therefore there's certain parts of a project you might be really good at, other parts you may not be, and you should decide the areas that you are most interested in. Um, Industries very obviously go through M&A, they go through restructuring, they go through different kinds of changes in their location, their business strategy, et cetera. And a lot of that will cause things such as layoffs. It'll cause things as high growth rates, et cetera. And it doesn't mean that a high growth rate is necessarily the best place for your particular skill set. Could be that it's more of a mature business, but you need to know that you can have a career for the next at least several years. That's almost the foreseeable future now, and be able to hang in there. Companies go through these changes, as we mentioned, and M&A happens. They go out of business, they lay off, they retrench, or in some cases, they distribute, they go global, et cetera. Actually, if you look at technologies from a macroeconomic point of view, countries go through changes, trade changes, economic changes, recessions, actually pandemic, and that changes a lot. So the important thing about understanding this life cycle is that you too have a career that goes through a career life cycle. And in each stage of your career, you can make different decisions as to where you go or what you want to do. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because as the faster the product life cycle changes, the more you have to be ahead of the curve in order to respond appropriately. Okay. Now, if we have our career goals here in each of the cycles, if you look at it, our beginning cycle when we get educated, and we have introductions and our growth of our beginning of our career and growth of our skill set, we have maturity, and we have eventually a decline where it declines, right? And it might be stable, but sometimes it's re-enhanced or it changes. In each stage of a career life cycle, you need to figure out what are your personal priorities and what is the career work that'll satisfy those. For example, in the early parts of your career, you're really worried about getting a foundational set of skills. So skills equals marketability is your goal. As you get more mature, you find out that you really are looking a little bit more for a return on investment, which could be management, quality of life. It could also be entrepreneurship. It could be equity. Those are all possible things that you look for later, but they're based on your past marketability and your new positions. Okay, so usually 35 to 55, you might be in those stages. You could also join a growth company and still use your marketable skills and your expertise to get a great return on investment. So that's one of the cycles in a career. The other thing is, in order to move to those positions, typically you need to be at least 50% qualified to get yourself into a situation. So the first question is, what do I want to do? And then secondly is, am I at least 50% qualified? I know that sounds like a low percentage to the traditional market out there. They pretend you have to have 100% of the qualifications. That's simply not true. You can interview around that and get that kind of a position. And many of the learning curves along the way are intellectual learning curves, which can be quickly picked up, as opposed to your real strength, which is experiential skills. So then the third question we have to ask ourselves for a good move is, who will hire us? This is an interesting question because in a lot of cases, people all go to the same kinds of companies throughout their career, and that's really not necessarily the best option. For example, in the beginning of a career where you're trying to pick up a lot of skills and training and help, you want to stay maybe to a larger company, or you might want to stay to, obviously a product that'll build up skills that you see for the longer term, or an industry that you like if you can. But the answer is there. Larger companies might be a better choice. But as you mature, and I've seen this with most of us through our career, you tend to, as you get stronger, you might have better opportunities in a smaller mid-sized company where positioning is important. The position is more important than the company. Companies come and go, actually. Wasn't that way 40 years ago, but it is today. And it's more important to have the right role. So you might find that in a smaller company or a mid-sized company where they need your expertise. A lot of seniors find that when I sit in a meeting with them, they find that they're always calling on the largest companies. Now, there are jobs in the largest companies. And in fact, if you look at the raw numbers, there's maybe more jobs right now, which is an aberration, actually, from the past. But those jobs are maybe the lower levels, and they're trying to displace higher salary people, and or they might have to reduce the management structures. So by going to a mid-sized company, sometimes you can find that you can get decent pay, good pay, but maybe even a better position with some equity or titles or level, et cetera. So these questions should be answered in every stage of your career life cycle. Now, going to a second choice now that is coming up because we're looking toward the future. Next slide. Yeah, here it is. I'm sorry, there it is. The real question that we're going to talk about tonight a little bit is, where is my job going? Where is it? What is my new role, and what roles will be available in the future? And this is especially true of oops, lost you there, dear.
Okay, there.
That's all right.
Get it back up here. See that AI?
Okay. So yeah, I'll start from here. So basically, what we really want to talk about in this particular webinar is what trends are coming, and how are these changes going to impact my job? In other words, what opportunities are going to be displaced by AI? What may be replacing it, because the problems still exist, the applications still exist, the business needs still exist. All that stays there. The thing that changed the most would be technology. And that will therefore change the organization. It'll change job titles. It'll change other things. So first thing we have to say is, what are my personal priorities now or in the next couple of years? And what career options does it make sense? You could, at this point, even change industries or products if you feel you're on a downside where AI is going to severely reduce the number of jobs or the number of upward opportunities. Now, again, you have to be at least somewhat qualified to handle some transitions, but that's also pretty adaptable if you can interview well. And the person that might hire you, let's talk about a couple of situations. First of all, raise your level of expertise more to the decision making, to the strategy planning, to the analytics, to making business decisions, as opposed to the pure technology. Because, as Carrie said, make this technology, the AI, your partner. So you can do that. The idea is to get above that so that you are still solving the business problems with new tools. Okay, AI is nothing more than a tool, but it's a pretty powerful one in terms of reducing repetitive tasks and routine work. Secondly, you could transition. So then you need to get an inventory and an understanding of yourself as a product. And in a transition, you figure out what roles would be possible for me. I am a product, so what would be the expertises, the features, the benefits, and actually what products and services have I had experience in, and what is the industry? You might decide that the industry is the one that you need to get out of. So you work on magnifying your role and your products and your similar skills and transferable skills so that you can make the transition to a different industry. Remember, most companies' domain expertise is a combination of products, services, technologies, expertise, and industry. So if you have three at one point, you can shift to another one by swapping one of them out. Sometimes it requires some training investment. Sometimes it requires some research. And sometimes it requires a little bit of increase in your knowledge. Which brings us to the second point. You can sell your future potential, just like someone coming out of school a little bit, but you can sell your transition if you reposition your focus on a resume, reposition your selling message and your brand identity. And if you if you have knowledge, you can sell knowledge you have. You don't have to have done something yet if you have the knowledge of how to do it. I've sold my knowledge and capabilities and aspirations my whole life, whether it was selling computers that people never had, whether it was selling an AI applicant tracking system that was new to the market, whether it was selling an intranet solution before people would even accept internet, right? People told me, we'll never let people access our computers from outside the building. That was my first line. That didn't sit well, right? And I went 6 months and I couldn't sell it. Why? Because they weren't ready for it. They just weren't ready for it. It was a little ahead of the time, but it was coming, and we all knew it. And that company I was with about a year or two later sold for $60 million, and they had spaghetti code. I mean, that's how new it was. Okay, so the point is, knowledge, capabilities, and aspirations can be incorporated into your resume and into your background so that you can apply to jobs of the future, the job and the trends that you do. I just finished a resume for a guy that does software, and we wrote it up very focused on AI applications, and he had some similar experience and a lot of knowledge. I actually did another one with the same kind of combination where we were in an individual contributor role, but his title was like an individual contributor, but he really wanted to be a manager. And he, in fact, is a de facto manager of projects and leaders and vendors, et cetera. And we were successful in getting him some interviews so far. I expect he'll get a job before the year end. Finally, the biggest parts of your skills are not necessarily intellectual skills. Intellectual skills a college student can learn in a course in school, right? But that's not your most marketable things. Even though they list a whole bunch of them, as part of an interview process, you should be able to emphasize your real value, which is experiential skills. For example, if you're a strong project manager or a strong salesman, learning the details of a product are not a big deal. That can be done in a week. So you can easily go out and sell the fact that this is what I want to do. This is what I have the capability of doing. I have been exposed to this, or I have this knowledge, and I have these similar skills or background and that I can apply to it. And that can be sold if you handle it properly. Finally, one of the reasons people have used resumes that are past tense, which is not our strategy, is because of the logic that past behavior, past successes indicate future successes and future behavior. There's some truth to that. But really what's interesting is if you have habits of success and a successful track record in one situation, you tend to have success in another situation. So by clarifying that and bringing that out in your interviews, you can get jobs in different areas. And you can use that combined with some factual stories and some success stories, and you can minimize, not always win, not always, you never always win, but you can minimize the risk factor of getting a new position. We might talk about that, I think, a little bit later in the presentation. And then finally, will they pay you enough? This is one where sometimes you say, well, if I have to make this transition and they're saying they're not going to pay enough and they're paying, a third off my salary, that has nothing to do with you going out and interviewing. You should go out and interview, and all of a sudden, if they decide they like you, you will get a real offer based on you and your skills and how you interview that will then allow you to make an informed decision. I've sent people out for jobs where they wanted 150, the job paid 120. By the time we were done, I can name 3 situations that come immediately to mind where they each had their offer at a 150 and the title changed. So people will hire the person they feel brings the most to the table. So you never want to evaluate job descriptions and pay levels on the front end. You want to go out and get with a manager. And once you get into that mode, you can start seeing whether it's going to be possible or not. And just like anything else, if you're the person they choose, they'll come up with an arrangement that will work. I've done it in my own career. I did 2 steps and other things we're talking about, and it works out fine. But you have to interview. And finally, one of the other things you might do to enter a new field is try flexible arrangements. Example, part-time work, fractional work, remote work. Maybe you can even go in as a contract to hire a person with a 90-day period to do something. Those are ways to do it. The other thing is you target companies that would be flexible to that. Will big companies with very rigid HR structures and whatever, will they allow you to do that? Probably not. Maybe you can do contracts with them because you can work directly with hiring managers. But maybe the best chance is to go to a mid-sized or smaller company or a consulting company and a vendor, target them, which most people don't target, and then they'll be more flexible. I know I was when I was hiring recruiters. I hired people that came to me that were making more money, but we gave them an incentive plans and we worked on things, and they took the compromise to be part of the team. And guess what? That happens a lot. So those are different ways of solving this problem, but you see it's the same part of decision making. Where do I want to go? What will give me the next 3 to 5 years of reasonable security, et cetera. And you must maintain your marketability, because if you don't make that switch or move, you will become increasingly unmarketable, and then your transition becomes more difficult in the future. Okay. So we talked about marketability, and everybody thinks that I got a great job. And when you're in that job and it's going along, we get lazy a little bit. And in the past, you got away with it a little in the 90s and 2000s, whatever. And you could react, and you could, if you had to go out and get a job, you could get one pretty quickly. But today, in today's world, there's a lot of factors that are changing the marketplace and are changing the job search process. The time to hire is longer. The number of people applying is dramatically different. I think Carrie has a couple stats for you later on that. And the fact of the matter is you cannot sit there and play reactive and get a job that you like. In fact, you may not get a job for a long period of time. What you must do in today's world, and we highly recommend this in Career Oyster, it's one of our founding principles, is proactive career management. So what happens? Whether you like it or not in your career, and nobody plans on some of these things, but they happen to almost everybody, the industry will change, the products will change, automation will occur, and obsolescence occurs, and things become repetitious for you, so that you become a little frustrated or not so happy to go to work. Second of all, then things like that will change the expertise needed for the new challenges and requires skill development and change. Adaptability is very important. this will happen to everyone that does. That's when the word work really has meaning. So when you like your work, it's not work, it's passion, it's fun. I happen to be in a passion play right now. It's a lot of fun. But when I was in recruiting sometimes and doing a lot better in income wise, I hated it every day because it was a little disappointing, frustrating, and too repetitions. This will happen to everyone's career at some point. The next thing is, as companies change, the M&A and cost cutting or layoffs surprise a lot of people. All of a sudden, I got a month to get a new job, or I have to go now, et cetera. And you're not ready for it. Or you're having a feeling that there's financial difficulties or a surprise. Don't say surprises can't happen. We have stories like MCI and Enron and others that go through huge changes in big companies, and all of a sudden they drop off a cliff. That's going to happen in the future. So in order to be ready for that kind of thing, you must be proactive, not reactive. The other thing happens is you could get a management change. I've experienced this. And the management change, the person that hired me and promised me to be a regional VP, he was so he was hired over. And then another person came in on top of me, which was incompatible to my style and incompatible to the background that we needed. So I had forced to make changes. And he wanted his team in. There's other people that I've helped, and all of a sudden they change the manager and new teams are formed. There's cultural changes as a company goes through its growth cycle, because now instead of being the fun, everybody's working together environment, it becomes a little more political, a little more structural, a little more, let's say, a little more rigid in its on its KPIs and performance, et cetera, and it changes. These are going to happen to people. When that happens, sometimes you'll find that other people are going to get the internal opportunities. You may not be regarded for those opportunities, or they're no longer available. In any case, you feel that there is no opportunity within that company, and now you need to be selectively and opportunistically available to look. Macroeconomic changes, we've experienced those between the pandemic and 2009. I certainly did. And I had to restart my career and reboot. And it fell off a cliff in July of 2009. I remember it exactly. My recruiting revenues went from really fine the whole first half of the year to almost zero the second half. So things like that can happen even if you try to keep your eyes open. And I had to reinvent myself. And what you do is really better if you can be ready and proactive so that you're always ready to handle these kinds of things. Competition and pricing will come into play with some cases and some products. And when that happens, that causes the rest of the business cycle to adjust. A lot of people, one of the things they won't make a change for, and this is very normal, is because they fear the unknown. They don't know whether they can make it in another company. They're comfortable where they are. They may have stayed a little too long. They may have found some people they liked. And yet, even if the company's in trouble, the problem is they're afraid to make the change outside it. Well, that's a little bit putting your head in the sand. And the best thing to do there is to address the fear itself and be ready and prepared and know you have a strong resume, know you have a marketable document, know you have your goals set and you've identified and maybe networked into some of those companies to get some contacts and are ready to interview on a moment's notice. That's the way you would approach that process, and that'll take away a lot of the frustration and perhaps fear. And the HR hiring process, we talked a little bit about that, but the process in today's world is really difficult. It's not an easy process. Most resumes don't even get seen. 200 and 300 resumes apply because it's too easy to apply today. I think personally, LinkedIn has ruined the hiring market a little bit from the candidate point of view. Companies like it, they get 300 resumes, but they only look at 20 or 30 and then they make their decisions. Time to hire is longer, competition is brutal, and it really becomes a longer cycle for the job seeker. Automation, impacted by AI, yes. Video interviewing, yes. ATSs will do the resume review, so a weak resume doesn't get seen. Video screening is going to do your initial interview to see if they even bring you in. And AI will eventually evaluate your resume and your video interview. So AI is going to really impact the hiring process because of the volumes it's dealing with, and it's kind of a repetitive type process. I'm personally, as from Career Oyster point of view, going to be looking at a lot of these things in our own business needs. And the idea is to help people prepare to handle those. So, Carrie mentioned this, and you want me to cover this, or you cover it, Carrie?
Keep going.
Pardon me?
Yeah, if you can cover it if you want to.
Okay. We talked about a lot of reasons how it'll change jobs, and I really like the way Carrie brought this up, that if you look at AI as a partner and a coworker, and then figure out how you can improve productivity and quality, and you take the high-end work and you delegate out the low-end work, that can work out really nice. There's no way any of us are going to stop its impact in our lives, and we hope most of it's productive, and you have to be careful where it's not productive. But the fact of the matter is, we have to address it, et cetera. You know, when computer industry started, uh, uh, people were afraid of computers. They didn't understand them, and yet, and they even tried to pass a bill in Congress, and I think it was 1964 with Lyndon Johnson. They were passing a bill that said if a computer came into a company, they couldn't have it replace a person. That was the thinking. Can you imagine that in Congress? And I'm reading that and I'm going, "Are you free? Are you kidding me? This is what they're for." So the point is that it scared everyone. The same thing happened on the internet. I experienced that when I was in that internet solutions where we were going to do HR updates from remote to be efficient and keep the record straight. Right? It's like a way of getting self-service out of our employees. It's actually a benefit, right? It's you know, it's a no cost worker doing the work, right? And that's what self-service is. And the reality was they said they would never allow that to happen. Well, then they did. When I first got a voicemail, president of my recruiting company said, that'll never work. You got to get somebody hired to answer the phone. Well, that was just version 1.0. It works just fine, as we all know. In fact, you can't even get a person on the phone now. So the reality is you have to embrace the technology and figure out, how do I make it go to my advantage in my role? How do I become a positive person and a positive advocate for the productivity changes that we need? That might take some research. That might take some learning. That might take some training to start seeing how to apply this. You need to invest in yourself because your marketability is dependent on your current skills, and they are going to have to evolve. You need to look at what are those skills that I have to get to and come up with a strategy. A lot of times you can look at competitors and see what they're up to. If you go to industry associations, et cetera, usually they follow the trends in their associations and are usually a good source of telling you where they think the industry is going. And of course, using Google and using Microsoft's package, you can easily, ChatGPT, you can easily say to Google, hey, Google, give me the trends in my industry for these kinds of jobs. And Google will do it in 2 minutes for you. Now you say, all right, let me do it somewhere else. And you get a couple ideas. And there you put together your plan to go forward. All right. So that's the market that we're facing. And 2025 is going to be not a slow entry into that market. There are already so many companies in the AI business. It is going to be a rapid avalanche of people jumping into it. Might be a good stock play for people to put your money in a mutual fund of AI only, because somebody's going to be big winners. And right now it's the big companies, but there'll be a lot of small companies. And I've talked to several of them myself as I explore how it's going to impact my business. And we're working on different parts of that. And the reality is there's niches, there's going to be a lot of opportunity, but every white collar and administrative and process type jobs are going to have to deal with it. So one of the comments I already made was, be ready to explore a job opportunity when it arises. What's that mean? It means someone calls you out of the blue, or they find you from an AI search process, or they're ready to do it. You can't all of a sudden start writing a resume, not a good one. You can't all of a sudden do the homework and figure out whether you want that or not. You need to proactively be working on that. And I mentioned already, no upfront bias. Why? It could be your dream job. My life's full of some of these things that I didn't expect. I mean, I was a physics major, and I ended up in engineering, then in sales, which I never thought I'd go into sales. And then I get into recruiting, which was the last thing I thought I'd be in. And it turned into a career. But I was, for whatever reason, I was prone to explore things. And when you go out and explore, you find out there are things you don't know, right? And so when I was in the IBM cave, which was a great cave, I didn't see the outside mini computer world. As soon as I went out to a recruiting, I saw a whole big world that I was unexposed to, and a whole new set of opportunities in engineering placement and IT placement. I've had a lot of people run into situations where they go to a company they didn't think they would like, and they find a great project, et cetera. So you should always explore opportunities carefully, make your decision when you get a full presentation from managers, et cetera. Secondly, always be vigilant for the unexpected changes that I just reviewed. They come suddenly. Some can come, are very foreseeable. Some are, you can tell by the finances of the company. Some can tell by management changes. So think of those and make sure you're ready. The answer still is to get ahead of the curve. And how our strategy should be, A, what do I want to do? Do I raise my level? Do I need a transition to a similar role, product, or industry? Do I have the transferable skills or the domain expertise that I can make at least an intellectual case, a capability case, even if I haven't had that specific experience, but I've had exposure and I know what they do, or I've gotten knowledge like a college student that I spent $70,000 a year to get. I have knowledge. You can sell that knowledge. You can sell your capabilities. Do I need to go and get certified or get a training investment? That's really easy to do today, where you can talk the talk and have the knowledge. And then you can sell that future potential, the knowledge, capabilities, and what you want to do, your aspirations, just as easily as you can sell actual experience. We talked about the experiential skills are really the key thing and how you present them in an interview. Okay, we covered the tracks before. Make sure you explore things. There's a whole world. It's interesting. We know sometimes what we like, and we know sometimes what we don't like. But there's a whole world out there where you don't know what you don't know. And the only way to figure that out is to go out and see what's happening. And you'll find that opportunities and dream jobs and new careers can open up for you if you go out and do that on a nice selectively looking basis. Always be open to opportunities and make some selective networking to help yourself in that. I've done a couple of where I took pay cut to get to a different path and ended up doing twice as well as I was before. I remember doing a lateral for a better opportunity in the in recruiting. The time when I got into AI product, the guy in front of me had failed miserably, couldn't sell it at all, told me it was impossible to sell. I kind of liked it. I took it and sold 34 systems in 4 years. So you go out and find out on your own what's comfortable to you, and that's how you put together your strategy. Okay. Here's your recommendations. When opportunities knock, explore them. I think people today should be in a selectively looking mode all the time. Selectively looking, which means networking, means talking to targeting companies that might be possible as you see your future and adjusting it if you see a different future. You might uncover by this networking different opportunities. It could be a campaign to connect and see what's out there a little bit, not randomly, not just people, be on purpose. In other words, have a future looking resume that we create or that you get created, get your LinkedIn to be looking that way and build some contacts in those particular niches so that if something were to happen, you have ways to recover or proactively take care of yourself. And you should, if earlier you do that and meet people and talk to them a little bit, the better off you'll be. My advice is you got to have an up-to-date resume and you got to be really feel comfortable with your interviewing approach. This is why we have these two products. It's simple as that. One of the things that I would also do, and I've done this when I was in recruiting, I submitted certain resumes to targeted companies for people even before they had an opening. Why? Because when they use their ATS, sometimes they'll go through they'll go through their ATS first and see who they have, and they're going to read those resumes right away. So you're going to beat the rush or the stampede that comes in when they put it out on LinkedIn. So if you had 20 companies that you wanted a resume in, I would filter it out slowly and let them have it. A, you might get a call, but B, more importantly, you'll make contacts there where you can use them, if not now, in the future, and you need to move. It's the same thing as following companies. A lot of people follow companies. Well, that's good. It's like, I don't know what that means. Follow companies. Or what are you looking from around the corner? That doesn't mean anything. You need to get to a contact. I would have an HR contact, and someone who's in there, and I would just talk to them a little bit and say, hey, do you ever hire these kind of people? Well, if I ever need that, I'm going to give you a call back. And you get a contact. Or you try to get to a hiring manager or so to let them know that, hey, do you ever need people in this area? And if I see somebody or some of my friends, I'll be happy to send them over to you. You can play a little bit of a future game with contact with them and build a list of a good network that will help you if you get yourself in a tough bind. The other side of it is the upside. They might decide, you know what, Howard's looking out there. We might be able to get Howard. Now I'm in the position like the star athlete in college, right? Now they got a bid for me because I'm happy where I am. I'm doing fine. I don't have to move. But guess what? They might make me an offer I can't refuse, in which case then I made that opportunity. Again, master proactive behavior, forward-looking documents, future-looking documents, proactive interviewing. That's always the gateway to opportunities. You want to handle this one, Carrie, since you're more of the gig person?
Yeah.
The only gigs I know are my kids' band. So,
yeah. So, the gig economy has been around for a while, the gig workforce, but it's continuing to increase, right? I mean, just think of even Uber, right? I mean, that's a gig economy. And I just read this article today that the demand for fractional roles has been increasing, increased by 18% from 2021 to 2022, and it's increased by 57% since 2020. So companies and CEOs, they want that flexibility to pull you in as a fractional, whatever it is, fractional engineer, fractional marketing person. They want to be able to pull you in and use you when they need you, and then not have the overhead of having to carry on as a full-time employee. So There's great opportunity here. And really, as a professional, it gives us more control over our careers if we choose this fractional approach. So, just a few tips to help anybody who would consider more of a fractional type role or gig role is one, you do want to always make sure you have a contract in place with them and you should have a template. Always have your marketing document, right? Remember, any job interview, any process, it's a sales and marketing process, like we talk about. So, you want to make sure that you have your resume that's a consultant type resume that's forward looking, ready to go at any given point in time. Learn how to sell yourself, right? That job interview process, whether it's for a gig job or a full-time, it's a sales process. So make sure that you know how to go in there and sell yourself in the interview following Howard's 6-step process. Learn how to consistently network and prospect for future gigs. There's a lot of speculation now that this job market for candidates is going to get better. Howard mentioned earlier a few stats that I just read earlier today. As of right now, compared to earlier this year, there are 18% fewer tech jobs out there than there were. So there's been a big decrease, particularly in the tech industry. And when we look at job applications, so people applying for jobs versus job openings, there are 4 times as many job applications as there are job openings. I laugh. I have a picture on my phone from LinkedIn that said you'd be a great candidate for this role. There were already 3,500 other people who had applied for this role. 3,500. So you've got to get proactive. You've got to get ahead of it. And they're saying I would be a top applicant. I don't even know what it was, but it's astonishing to me. And like Howard said, LinkedIn has done such a disservice to candidates by making it so easy for people to apply. They just apply for stuff they have no business applying for. A few other good points. Make sure that you've got good references, particularly in consulting or gig roles. They're going to want to talk to your references. Stay in your lane of expertise. If you have a particular expertise, like for me, it's a lot of marketing, make sure that you build that expertise and put yourself out there as an expert in that field. And then standardize your marketing and sales process. So you are going to be going out selling yourself regularly. Make sure that you have a good, repeatable process that you can use to go out and secure your new opportunities. The other thing we wanted to talk about is your personal branding, right? So some people have their own websites and their own portfolios. All of us have your LinkedIn profiles, right? And yep, that's your opportunity to sell yourself. So make sure that on your LinkedIn profile, you're clearly defining what your skills and your expertise are, particularly in that top section. You've got the opportunity to, say what you do or what you are. Make sure that that's highlighting the most important skills and expertise for you personally. What is your brand image, right? What does your photo look like on there? You've got the banner on the top of your LinkedIn profile. That's a great opportunity for you to highlight what your skills are, how to get in touch with you, the value that you can provide to that employer. Most people just put some picture up there or some banner that they got off or wherever, but that's wasted real estate. I mean, that's your sales page. Consistently showcase your value, make sure that you're highlighting positive, great work that you've done and making contributions. So one, just posting on LinkedIn is a great way to demonstrate your value, your skills and experience, but also you've got the opportunity for those featured assets where you can put out there, if you've written something or created something, whatever, you can put it out there as examples of your work. That's all an opportunity to show yourself. And make sure that you're networking, right? As Howard talked about, even with traditional roles, make sure that you're always networking. LinkedIn has that other opportunity to contribute to common questions. Use that opportunity. I know I've had some great success with that.
Could I let me add a point to that?
Yeah, great.
Networking. Okay, so there's a thing called guerrilla marketing, an old book that's been written out. And it's a way of going around the walls, you know what I mean? Going through the back door or something. And we used to do that a lot. We go through the back door if we can't get through the HR department, right? So I got a lot of funny stories on that. But anyhow, when you see it, there's an interesting stat I just saw today, and I don't know if it was in your statistic, but if they put a salary in on the job description, it turns out it reduces the number of responders quite a bit.
I think it's the opposite, Howard.
Was it?
Yeah, it's the opposite. When they put the salary out there, it actually, I think I'll double check that and we'll follow up in the show notes here. But yeah, I think it actually increases, and because there's more and more states that are going to be requiring companies to put the salary ranges out there.
Okay. I don't know that if that's true, then my little argument here was not good. So I had to reverse myself here a little bit. All right. So what I would say is this: even if whatever the salary is, high, low, or medium, the fact is, even if it's above where I am or it's below where you are, send in your resume. Why? You may not get accepted or you may not even surface on that, but you're in their database. And then you can use that to try to figure out who a recruiter may call you, and you can build a recruiter friend. And there may be other positions there, especially if they're looking for a management person. They might also need some other staff people and expertise underneath that. Or likewise, if they're looking for a staff person, they might have another confidential management experience person around need. So the whole point is you don't know what's going on behind their walls. So don't worry about at this point. I'm going to violate the LinkedIn. I'm going to play LinkedIn's game. Get your resume in there, but don't count on that to work in some cases. But it gives you a way that you might work in the future, especially if you're not actively looking. That becomes a way to get into their applicant tracking system. I don't know if I have ever, unless I didn't like someone or whatever. And once a resume got into my applicant tracking system, it was there forever. It was there forever. It's like any email list or anything else. You can't get off it. And so the fact is they might bring you up in another kind of search at some point in time. That's one thing I would do with networking. The second thing would be I would still try to find people in that company. If it's a company that's target your one of your, let's say it's in your target area, you might want to try to get a contact or two in there and just talk to them about the position. I'm not sure what the qualifications are. It doesn't sound like I'm qualified. Hey, I'd like to stay in touch with you, send my resume and have them put it into the system. And then they would be a referral into the system. So there's just things on the networking, but in the what do we call it? Remote work is another way. You can apply to jobs in a lot of country cities. You can apply to a lot of jobs, and that are in your target market because you can work remote. And so I would also consider that to be one of the areas that I would focus on a little bit. So been a long day. Okay. Uh, this slide This slide shows the acceleration of the market. In most markets back 10 years ago or whatever, maybe, and certainly longer than that, you had traditional 5 to 10 year life cycles. And before technologies got completely overhauled or replaced. But that's not going to happen right now. You got AI, and you're going to now be in a shorter cycle, 2 to 5 years. And with AI developing, it's exponential. It might even shrink faster. So every one of the changes that we mentioned in our list are going to happen faster between management changes, company changes, client changes, technology changes. All these things are going to happen faster. And you have to kind of try to visualize the impacts of that to different jobs, et cetera. And that's why you can't be reactive. You're not going to get as much time. You're going 70 miles an hour on this future, whereas you went 35 miles an hour in the past, and you had time to do something. Well, you're not going to have the time to do it. So as they shorten, your career options not only change, but your response time and your let's say your your ability to recognize them and respond to them is also changing. So you must be ready. You can't be wasting time and spending, a lot of time trying to think it through. You should be ready all the time. So I think that's the summary of the process here.
And hence the proactive career management that Howard talks about.
Yep.
It's so important to be ready. So just a couple of the key takeaways from our session. That change is constant, right? AI and the gig economy are just the two latest changes that are impacting all of our workforces and all of our jobs. You can either learn how to embrace it and be faster and better and smarter at your job, or it's time to hang up your cleats, right? Either jump on and learn to embrace it or call it a day. And so that's why proactive career management is so key to success. We really want to encourage you to have a plan, be ready. I heard today somebody say on the news, you should update your resume every 3 weeks. That might be a little bit aggressive, but I think the point is you should be capturing your stories and keeping your resume current and proactively doing that work, networking like Howard talked about, so that you are ready when an opportunity comes up.
That's true.
Howard, anything else you want to say before we close up?
No, I think I covered that topic. I think there was one question that came to me. What was that one about? Somebody said, I'm currently using Howard's approach. Somebody knows me, I guess, obviously, to pursue new roles. My interest in this says to put myself in a position where I am stepping into the future state roles versus the roles that will be replaced by AI. I think we answered that question, but I'll just make a couple more comments on it. If you look at technology, especially, technology always starts out as very creative and new, and then it becomes routine to everybody, and then eventually it becomes, replaced. And the key, if I look at the history of the IT business, the technology business, which I was part of, the first time you went out to a company that never didn't know what a computer did was brand new, right? Now people can make decisions about computers and everything, over the phone and order their stuff, et cetera. And every time something changes, there's an educational period, et cetera, and then it becomes routine. And you got to, I stepped above the technology when I went into recruiting because people still needed to hire people as the prices of computer were dropping every week and the margins were dropping. So from a sales perspective, you had to sell every year 2 times more product to make the same money. And it was a little bit of a, mouse wheel. And one of the things I did in my career was get out of that technology and go above it where they're looking for people because no matter what happens with the technology underneath, they were always going to need people. I just changed the type of person I was finding. And so that's the approach I looked at. There was a couple other people that instead of selling the computers, they sold the supplies to the computers. Well, that's to me. What a, at first I thought, what, I don't want to do that. Yet they had ongoing revenue the rest of their career, all coming from the accounts that they sold paper to, or they sold some kind of computer supplies to. So there's if you get above the technology, then you have a lot of different things like the analysis, the strategy, the road mapping, the competitive processes, the expertise that you need and then you're a little bit more insulated from some of these changes. It's kind of an interesting thing to me. One of the first applications we sold was payroll back in 70s. Payroll. What do they still sell today on the radio? Payroll. They're still selling payroll. People have to get paid all the time. They have to solve problems. They have applications. They have problems. But the technology is going through what? About 10 different swings of client server and intranet, internet, and all the rest of it. So one of the keys is to try to get above that or get into the people side of it where you're managing the processes and making decisions. That's my best advice.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Howard. Well, if anybody has not done their free 1-hour career consultation, we invite you to do so. You can see the link to the calendar here, or of course, just email Howard or myself, and we're happy to get that scheduled and help you to be prepared and take a proactive approach and get the career that you really want in 2025. So thank you, Howard, for all the insights. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you again the next time.